Do you need a couch moved? Want to give away spare boxes? How about baby clothes? Do you need to hire a quiet assassin to kill your lover's wife? Craigslist has a number of different uses and some are downright frightening. The end results often wind up on the news. While many of the perpetrators are men, it's unfair not to check out the women as well. So here are 10 infamous and horrifying women of Craigslist. At number 10 we have Christina Guffey. Sometimes Craigslist ads can begin as a blessing but turn into something more sinister. Timothy Radford opened his home to homeless Christina Guffey and her boyfriend Christopher Johnson after Guffey posted an ad that she needed a place to stay and was desperate and would do anything. Since losing her job at Walmart, Guffey couldn't afford to take care of her children and was devastated to lose them to their father. When she had hit rock bottom, she realised she had to do something. The initial agreement with Radford was sex in return for a safe place to stay. This situation isn't new for many people, so Guffey agreed to pay back her room and board with companionship. However, the woman started to get cold feet. She backed out, Radford began raising hell, and Johnson decided to shoot him. The overall claim was that Johnson was trying to protect Guffey and mistook Radford for a threat. Even though the crime was never their intention, after shooting the man, the two got a Bonnie and Clyde tattoo. While Johnson got a bigger sentence, Guffey was still sentenced to at least 10 years in prison for aiding the slain. At number 9 we have Amanda Knight. Amanda Knight called the shots when it came to sentencing victim Jim Sanders to his death. Knight called Sanders about his Craigslist ad for a diamond ring. Tugging at his heartstrings, she came up with an elaborate story that she was going to buy it for Mother's Day. Instead, she and 3 men showed up at Sanders' door with different intentions. Higashi, Bernard and Reese joined Knight in tying up Sanders and his wife and then proceeded to hold guns to their children. After roughing up one of the kids, Sanders broke free and was shot to death. The intent was robbery, but once things got out of control, it quickly became murder. Knight claimed that she was forced to doing it by Higashi, but the jury didn't buy it. She was then sentenced to 71 years in prison. Tami Lafave. We've all known that overclingy girl who's borderline obsessed with her boyfriend, but did she need to go as far as murder to keep him? Meet 21-year-old Tami Lafave, the young woman whose life was turned upside down on a fateful day. Attached like glue to her boyfriend Travis Zolik, Lafave became an accomplice in the murder of Harun Khan. Khan was a 31-year-old student who went missing when his family awaited his company in celebrating Eid. He was trying to sell a car on Craigslist and Lafave and Zolik went on a test drive with him, where Zolik pulled a gun. He took Khan out into a wooded area and stabbed him to death. The young girl watched the entire thing, knowing she should call 911 or get help in some way, but she decided against it. Instead, she drove Zolik's own car home, where he hid Khan at a storage unit. Afterwards, the two even went out shopping like nothing had even happened. Despite not plotting or participating in the actual killing, Lafave's loyalty to her boyfriend kept her calling the authorities, therefore dooming the young victim, all because she was afraid Zolik would break up with her. Travis Zolik shot himself before he could be taken into custody, but Lafave was sentenced to 25 years. AnnMarie Linscott is at number 7. You can use the internet for so many wonderful things. You can use it for furniture, companionship, or even hired killers. Yep, that last one is very much true, but AnnMarie Linscott learned posting an ad for silent assassins doesn't always end well. Linscott had a notorious background filled with obsessive stalking and personal protection orders. She met her lover online a few years back and began a tumultuous affair while he was still married. In a very classic and expected turn of events, she grew infatuated with him and figured the only thing keeping them separate was his wife. Where to go from here? Craigslist, of course. All the assassin had to do was kill the man's wife in California, and then they could finally be together. There was one catch. Linscott was married to a man as well. Amazingly, Linscott's husband John claimed that this was a characteristic of her. In 1997, a co-worker put a restraining order on her when she fell madly in love with him and began stalking him. She also became obsessed with a deputy for a short time when she was in jail. Linscott was sentenced to the maximum sentence of 12.5 years in prison. At number 6 we have Latoya Jordan. Sometimes people drive you so crazy you just snap. It's safe to say that we've all been there over stressors like work or personal problems. Latoya Jordan's idea of snapping led to roommate Daniel Summerson dead and rolled up in a carpet. After finding a place to stay on Craigslist, Jordan moved in with Summerson under the idea that it'd be a simple living situation. Problems arose when Summerson started to push for a romance and she wasn't feeling it. Anxiety levels were high within Jordan when it came to conflict. She saw herself homeless and was unable to fend for herself just because she refused to sleep with him. After continuously being pushed, she finally snapped and grabbed a knife from the kitchen. And she stabbed him while he was in bed. And then once more when he was crawling towards the door in a last-ditch effort to save himself. Jordan was sentenced to life in prison, where hopefully she won't snap at one of her cellmates. Bria Corrin and Janelle Blackmon come in at number 5. For most of us, it's common knowledge that starting a relationship through Craigslist is probably a bad idea. I mean, come on, they have serial killers on it. Blackmon met Michael Freeland through a personal ad on the site and developed a strong connection with him. After being together multiple times, she decided that instead of taking the relationship to the next level, she'd rather just kill him. The house was on fire when officials arrived, and initially they ruled his death as an accident. But after introducing the arson team to the scene, it was pretty clear that that was not the case. Blackmon stole Freeland's credit cards and robbed him of his things, beat him to death and set his house ablaze. Obviously she wasn't much of a criminal mastermind, as the tremendous sloppiness of her work at the crime scene quickly led to her arrest. Number 4. Jamara Galman. The anonymity of online dating can make it a cesspool for secret sexual encounters. David Messerschmidt was a lawyer for a conservative law firm with a lovely wife, so naturally when it came to desiring sex with a man, he took to the internet. David posted an ad on Craigslist for sex and he got a response complete with pictures. After approving the future encounter, he booked a night at an upscale hotel and was set on meeting his new friend. Instead, the person that arrived was Jamara Galman. Galman fatally stabbed and robbed David in a hotel room after posing as a gay man through email. So what was the big score that Galman came away with? A whopping $40 and a bus card. The original intention was supposedly just robbery, but she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. At number 3 we have Diane Warren. Craigslist once again proves that you never know exactly who you're dealing with in the case of Diane Warren, who had the track record of a violent gangster. However, you would never guess by looking at her. Warwick responded to an ad by Mary Jane Scallon, who was a 70-year-old 94-pound woman who was looking for a caretaker. Not knowing about Warwick's past led to Scallon's murder. While taking care of her, she stabbed the tiny old woman in her own bed. What were her motives? She claimed she was hallucinating about attacking her father. Warwick was also convicted of robbing a Colorado pharmacy in 1998, and afterwards she was committed to a mental hospital for 4 years. Somehow they released Warwick, and she proceeded to take hostages and shoot at police in 1997 in a Napa pharmacy. She ended her run of terror with the murder and ended up spending life behind bars. She's a nice reminder that the next time you try to hire someone, you might want to run a stronger background check. Coming at number 2, we have Karina Roberts. A lot of people, men and women alike, get baby fever. But Karina Roberts took her desire to have a kid to a completely new level. The 29-year-old weaved a web of lies amongst her family and friends about being pregnant and bearing twins. Once everyone believed it, it came time to actually prove that it was happening. Roberts took to Craigslist and connected with a 21-year-old Heather Snively, a woman who was in her 3rd trimester. The two were planning on exchanging baby clothes. One thing led to another, and Snively wound up being bludgeoned to death. That wasn't the gruesome part though. You may want to sit down for the next part and take a deep breath, because Robert cut Snively's baby straight from her womb, essentially stealing the unborn child as her own. When police arrived at the scene, Roberts hid Snively's body from view and claimed that the child was hers. Not too smart on her part, of course, as it was pretty easy for doctors to point out that her body lacked the evidence of birth. Roberts was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Topping us off at number 1 is Miranda Barbour. With Craigslist killings, it's typically a situation in which robbery is the intent, but things get out of control. But in the case of Miranda Barbour and her husband Elliot, they decided to murder just because. Self-proclaimed Satanists, they used Miranda as bait for female companionship. Luring men into the trap was part of the game, and Troy LaFerra wound up in a whirlwind that would end his life. After replying to the ad, both Miranda and Elliot stabbed and strangled the man to death. The newlyweds then began looking for a place to dump his body, and during that search, they claimed he was still alive. Miranda was only 19 at the time that the murder took place. The story became a news sensation across the country. Miranda made claims that she killed 22 more people in her satanic cult practices. As the stories changed, she began telling reporters that she was inspired by the TV show Dexter. She claims that similar to her favourite character, she only murdered bad people. No evidence supports the claim that she killed more than once, but Super Miranda, as she called her alter ego, insisted she's big and tough. Thankfully, she's been sentenced to life in prison alongside her husband.